All right, great. So for housekeeping rules, this are what we hope to adhere to. Um, we are not speaking, please stay muted until maybe you have something to say. You can then indicate to give you opportunity to talk. And then for this purpose, you can use the chat box, make use of it wisely to ask your question and then react, pass across comment to the speakers or anything you want to call our attention to. And then we'd like you to stay on the topic. We are here to talk about M&E. There are so many things that can be on people's mind, but we'd like us to limit the purpose of this conversation to M&E for today. And then, of course, make use of the raise hand feature. If you want to talk, we may not necessarily know if you want to talk. So please raise up your hand so that we can recognize and then give you the opportunity to talk. So this is our icebreaker. If you're on the call, please kindly respond to this. What will you do if you're given $100 million? What will you do if you're given $100 million? You can make use of the chat box to respond to this, or if you want to come off mute and then let us know what you do, feel free to do that. What will you do if you're given $100 million? Going through the chat box now to see some of the comments. The first one is a shocker. Sophia is saying she will resign and focus on charity for the rest of my days. There's a lot of money not to work for anybody, I see. So thank you, Sophia, for letting us know what you will do. Please respond to this. What will you do if you are given $100 million? A lot of money. So what will you do with it? Sophia just said she will resign from any paid employment and then focus on a charity foundation for the rest of her days. See, checking the chat box to see who has responded to this. Precious is saying, I will first buy a car. Then I'll keep the rest and be looking at it for a month. Okay, so you buy a car and then what will you use to fuel the car if you not touch the remaining money? All right, thank you, Precious. It's good to hear your thoughts. You buy a car and then keep the remaining. Michael is saying, I will invest in a bank to get profits. I'm imagining how much you're going to invest. If you have already $100 million, I wonder what profits you'll be looking for again. This is a whole lot of money. So what profit do you want again? So keep your responses coming and let's proceed. So this session is made possible by M&E Sphere. For those of us who are just joining our this webinar for the first time, we'll be having a series of webinars. So if today is your first day, today we are happy to tell you a bit about M&E Sphere. So M&E Sphere is a capacity building initiative that empowers young professionals with tailored M&E information, resources, and skill to bridge the talent gap in the development space. M&E Sphere came as a result of young people or young professionals complaining there are no opportunities, and then on one hand you have employers of labor complaining that there are no skilled people to employ. So we decided to come up with this initiative to bridge that gap. So our vision basically is to enhance youth participation in M&E processes, thereby fostering youth voices and their contribution to the sustainable development. And the mission of the initiative is to empower young professionals with information, resources, and then skill to harness opportunities in the development space and in M&E as a career space. We have a community, a very thriving community on WhatsApp, where you can join. As of the last count, we have people from over 20 countries who are part of the WhatsApp community. And then the beauty of M&E Sphere is that we leverage human connections, right? So we have people from different sectors, different countries different regions, and all these are people who share the same passion for M&E. Some are actually working in M&E, people from the UN, people from many international NGOs. So we leverage this human connection. One person is here in Nigeria, another person in another country. So we kind of create this pool where information travel within the members. So we have access to information, we have access to resources, courtesy of this network that we have forged called the M&E Sphere. So you're welcome to join us. This is the link to the WhatsApp chat. I will share this later with you. If you are not on the platform and you feel you can be part of it, you are welcome to join us. And of course, M&E Sphere is a budding initiative. If you have any idea and any contribution that can move it forward, you're welcome to join us. So let me go through the chat box. I see some messages. So let me take, Ojuma is saying $100 million. What will she do? I'll create a foundation, establish a charitable foundation to support causes aligned with my values, that is education, women empowerment, climate change, or humanitarian aid. Goodness is saying, I will first give myself 2-day rest out of Nigeria and I'll come back for business. Okay. Ishaku is saying, with the current situation in my state, I will ensure that I support flood victims in our state. Oh, this is very thoughtful of you. And our prayers are with everyone in Borno State who is been affected by the recent floods. And David is saying, I will start an art foundation across the 36 states in Nigeria for economically disadvantaged children. Very thoughtful. Thank you, David. Onuba is saying, I will use 50% to invest in government bonds and spend the rest, 50%, that is, you're going to use $50 million to invest and then spend the rest. That is good. Israel is saying, I'll invest in properties and foundation startup in development sector across Nigeria, then go and run for election to go and become the president of Nigeria. Wow. I hope he's saying I will invest in business and digital assets. Okay. Benjamin is saying, what is the condition attached to the fund? There is no condition. Free will, what will you do with $100 million? It's your money. Nobody's giving conditions. Idris is saying, I will invest 50% in my current entrepreneurship business and I think spend, what is here? Okay, I'll invest 50% in my entrepreneurship business and the rest go to start a viable NGO. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for letting us know. It's beautiful to, hear different perspective of what people can do when, they have access to this kind of money. All right, so let's go on. So for today, it's not about me. This is people that have, that agree to share their knowledge with us. We have very, very prominent speakers today, and I'm happy and super excited that they agreed to do us this honor to let us know how their journey started and where they are today. By my left hand, we have Edikan and Mbang, and then on the right, we have Aloysious. So to do justice to this, I'll be inviting members of the M&E community, some of them to take the bio of our facilitators today. On the left, we have Edikan Mbang, and I'll be going to the participant to see who we have who can. Ashezi Yusuf, you're here, please. Can you read the profile of our facilitator? On the left, Edikan Mbang.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It's great to have you here. So I'll be taking the first bio. So Edikan Mbang is a seasoned development professional with over 7 years of experience spanning both the private and non-profit sectors. His expertise lies at the intersection of education, youth development, and strategic impact. From crafting strategies to delivering outcomes and conducting impact assessments, Edikan has dedicated his career to fostering meaningful change. Beginning his journey as a classroom teacher, Edikan transited into the fields of monitoring, evaluation, research, and learning. He now specializes in helping organizations shape their strategies through the use of robust data, evidence, and analysis. Currently, Edikan serves as the global head of data strategy and planning at Teach for All, a top global non-profit organization operating in over 60 countries. In this role, he leads the design and execution of the team's vision and strategic direction. He oversees programmatic planning, drives cohesion across work streams, and advances the organization's approach to data measurement, utilization, and systems enhancement. Central to his role is generating insights, fostering reflection, and cultivating a culture of continuous learning within the organization. Edikan is deeply passionate about the transformative power of quality, inclusive education. He is committed to ensuring that all children, regardless of their background, have access to opportunities that can positively shape their life trajectories. Thank you so much. Over to you. Hello, over to you, Godwin.
Okay, thank you, Ashezi. Beautifully read. Thank you so much for doing justice to that. Please, let's, with our virtual ovations, let's show some love. Let's appreciate our facilitator, Edikan, for agreeing to be here. From his profile, you see that it's not somebody who you can meet and any other you can meet anywhere, So we are grateful that he agreed to do us this honor to be on this panel today. So please, let's give him, let's show him some love in the chat box here. I see that coming, David, thank you. Let's appreciate him for giving us his time today. So moving on, we would like to read the profile of our next speaker, and to do justice to that, I'll be inviting Dr. Rosie. Dr. Rosie, if you're on the call, over to you. Can you read the bio of our second speaker?
All right, good evening, everyone, and greetings from Nigeria. Privileged to introduce Aloysious Mukwaya, the country MEL, that's the Monitoring and Evaluation Learning Expert, USAID, Uganda. Mukwaya is a seasoned monitoring, evaluation, and learning expert with more than 10 years of professional experience in the humanitarian field, and he's had proven experience in health, especially HIV, maternal and child health, family planning, education, child protection, sexual and gender-based violence, food security, and economic recovery, and much more, especially in rural development and value chain, democracy, human rights, and governance. You can see he's touched it all. He has in-depth experience in designing and operationalizing meal systems and strategies across East Africa. Our speaker today holds a master's degree in monitoring and evaluation and is currently a PhD student. Aloysious is well known for promoting community-led monitoring and evaluation with participatory approaches that have led to program learning across the civil society space in Uganda. Currently, our speaker takes the lead in the monitoring, evaluation, and learning activities at CSSA, with the major goal of building the organizational capacity of Ugandan civil society organizations. Join me in welcoming our distinguished speaker with an emoji. Thank you very much. Over.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rosie, for that beautiful recitation. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Aloysious all the way from Uganda. Thank you very much, sir, for agreeing to be on our panel today. We do not take it for granted. Thank you, everyone, for appreciating our speakers. Let's show them love. Let's appreciate them some more. So now we are going into the business of the day. This is what we are all here for. We have done the initials, and then it is time to go into the conversation proper to hear from our speakers. And I'll just urge you to sit back to get your notepad ready. I have mine ready to take down, some of the insight they'll be sharing with us. In the chat box, please let's share, let's show them, let's give them virtual ovation, let's show them love, let's appreciate them for agreeing to be part of this conversation today. Thank you, Precious. Thank you, Dorcas. Thank you, Doctor, thank you so much, everyone. So, yeah, I see on the participant list our speakers are here, but before we go into the conversation, I would just like to hear their voice. Can you just unmute Edikan and let's just say something to our audience before we go into the conversation? Same applies to Aloysious. Can you just unmute so that we'll hear your voice and there's
Absolutely. Please confirm you can hear me.
Yeah, crystal clear. I can hear you.
Great. Thank you, Godwin, for inviting me here, and pleasure to be in a community of like-minded people to share my story and experience, and also to learn from my co-panelists. I'm looking forward to an impactful session today. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Good to hear from you again. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. A fun side of it, Edikan used to be my manager. We worked together sometime, and it was an amazing manager that gave birth to, so many of us who are doing great things today. This is just to say publicly, thank you so much, sir, for, investing in us and giving us the wing to fly today. So over to you, Aloysious from Uganda. Can you just say hi to our participants?
Hi, everyone, and hi, Godwin. Let me hope I'm clear. I should admit I've tried my best to find the best places where I could get better network at my hotel. I'm at the rooftop, and hopefully you guys can hear me all well. It's a pleasure, of course, being here today, and of course, sharing my journey into this amazing field, I would say, for my case. I hope that maybe sharing my story can in one way or the other inspire someone or anyone who is trying to embark on this great journey as your path, which is, I think, a very vital field for anyone who is in the development world today. Nice to be here.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, sir. Of course, we can hear you even though you're on the rooftop. And I see the chat box is busy. Thank you so much, everyone, for engaging. Thank you, Abdullahi. Thank you, Mr. James. And now we can just begin the conversation. Let me just change this so that I can switch my screen.
He walked before he would tell me he's going home now. I said, I know everybody cannot be like you. So you see, he said, and any advice he knows that I will listen. I say, oh God, let's just go and do it. Oh God, let's go and do it. It's not perfect. He has done.
Okay, so hopefully my screen is up and you all can see. Like we've earlier said, this session is designed for people who actually are into M&E or a young professional who hope to transition. One of the things that we've noticed over time is the lack of, access to information, because information is power. So we hope that through this session, hearing from people who have, worked in M&E for over 10 years, people who are holding, senior position in, multinational organizations, we hope that when we learn from their journey, it's going to inspire us and give us the needed clarity to take the action that will get us the desired results. So yeah, I would like to just go into the conversation proper. Let me know you're ready in the chat box. If you're ready for us to kickstart this discussion, just give me your favorite emoji. Let me know you're ready. Let me know you're good to go. Then I can just go straight to the question and then begin to ask. Yeah, Precious. Yes, we can. Yeah, Adam's ready. Thank you. Okay. So we'll have questions here, more like guides, not exhaustive. And of course, if you're listening or you're part of this conversation, you came in with your questions, or maybe during the conversation, it's, prompted you to want to deepen, the conversation further or to ask for more clarity. Just note down your question. We're going to take Q&A after this panel. So for the purpose of this conversation, I would just like to stick to the questions that we have and then take turn to ask our speakers as they respond and share with us from their unique perspective of how they got into the M&E space. So I'd like to start with Mr. Edikan Mbang. Sir, over to you. Can you tell us briefly about your academic and professional background? We are particularly interested to know how your educational background shaped your decision to pursue a career in monitoring and evaluation. This is because I always get this question, do I have to be a science student? I didn't study mathematics. Does it have to do anything with your educational background? Is there any alignment between maybe what you studied in school and what you're doing today?
Thank you very much, Godwin. I really like this session, I would say, because I think it caters to everybody and most people who would more or less share the same background as me. I have a background in botany and ecological studies. That's plant biology. That's what I did in my first degree. And that's a pure science background, biological science background. I do not have any experience in statistics, mathematics, economics, or any of those most aligned, would I say, university degree courses that would typically land you M&E roles. No, my background is in botany and ecological studies. And so the question is there an alignment to your academic and professional background? What I would say is mostly aligned is I would say it's the skills that I got from the university, the ability to probe things, ability to question things, ability to find out answers to deepen questions. And that is the one thing that you would find commonly across, I would say, all of the university backgrounds, academic backgrounds. What drew me into the M&E field is different, and I think we won't get into the second question. I will expand more on that. But no, my academic background isn't directly related to monitoring, evaluation, and learning. I have a biological science major background, botany and ecological studies. I hope that's helpful, Gavin.
Yeah, very, very. Thank you so much. Interesting to know from a biological background. But one thing that you said that I picked is the fact that your degree program kind of build this curiosity in you, ability to be able to ask questions, and that's, helped you in what you're doing today. Thank you so much. First question, Claire. You don't have to be, a statistical student or a computer science student. So I'll move to Aloysious. Aloysious, over to you. Would like you to respond to the same question. Can you tell us briefly about your academic and professional background?
I think it's a little fortunate and unfortunate. Likely like Edikan, my first degree is in physics. Actually, it's science education with physics, and some minors in mathematics. But I think besides the being inclined to sciences, perhaps my degree or my first degree did not in any way connect me to M&E, I should say. I wouldn't say there's any connection. And towards my last, I think, year at university for my first degree, I dropped mathematics and majored in physics. And unfortunately, I think maybe for the other questions, but I think after my degree, I didn't have enough time or enough chance to practice classroom teaching that much. But I would say it's not my background that shaped my decision to be in this career. But of course, there are some alignments in one or the other, in the way you want to pick things, in the way you want to change the world, in the way you'd want to learn between the lines. In one or the other, you can be inspired with a few elements within your first degree, but not directly for me, for my career.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, we're hearing there's no direct alignment with what you studied in your first degree, physics, and then the M&E. But of course, you are practicing M&E today. So thank you very much. I think we have done justice to the first question. They've all have told us what they study and then the alignment between what they study in school and then M&E. That is clear. So now to the second question now, Edikan, over to you. Did you study your professional career in monitoring evaluation, given that you had a background in biological sciences? Did you study off in monitoring evaluation or you transition from other roles into M&E? It's a yes or no. If it's a yes, then you elaborate on what it is.
Yeah, no, I did not start my professional career in M&E. M&E was what I picked as one of the things that my interest, my passions gravitated to along the line of my career, what I was doing at the time. I started as a teacher. I have taught in different capacities, and it was through that teaching journey. Of course, as a teacher, if there's anybody who is a teacher here, you would know that teaching and facilitating learning in the classroom, aligns closely with result measurement. How are students learning? Is there any correlation between what I'm doing and what students are perceiving? Is my methodology working? What do I need to change? What are the formative results showing me? So teaching, I would say, was what laid the foundation. And that's what I started my career with. I started as a teacher and then transitioned into research, through a project that I worked on, and through supporting other people in their projects, helping them research, find answers, mostly Dex research, and then along the lines started primary research. And then that's how I ventured with time into the field of monitoring and evaluation.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. You didn't start off as a monitoring and evaluation professional in the early days of your career. You started off as a teacher, taught at different levels, and then from there you transitioned to research. And one thing I pick from your, response is the fact that your years of teaching the classroom help to see the alignment between teaching and then in result what we measure in monitoring and evaluation. The message to anyone listening, it doesn't matter what you're doing today, there's room for you to transition. What you're doing can actually, be there'll be a connection between what you're doing and monitoring and evaluation. Thank you, sir, again for sharing. And I would like to hear the same thing. I would like to hear what Aloysious started off doing before majoring into monitoring evaluation. So over to you, sir. Did you start off your career in monitoring evaluation or you transitioned from other roles into monitoring evaluation?
I would say no, of course, likely like Edikan. During my university time, I come from central Uganda where the HIV prevalence rates are really very high. And using my university time and experiences then with my different postmates, I used to take off time to go and do voluntary work in different organizations, trying to do mentorship in HIV-affected children. And the time that I had around with them, I should tell you, when it comes to the next question that I see here, I did not get a chance thereafter to practice education or practice physics at any level, I would say. But in between there, I started to work with organizations in one or the other at a voluntary level, doing mentorship, trying to speak to these young people that had lost their parents, those that were in school, those that were dropped out of school, trying to make sure that we push them back to school. And I would say that by the time I finished university, I was already into it. I was already loving what I was doing then, even when it was not paying. So it could be yes or no, depending on how which range you want to take. But I would say no. I transitioned later.
Okay, thank you so much. I must say, for me, it's an inspiration to hear both of you who did not start off in monitoring evaluation and then today working as M&E professional at the top level of your careers. It's inspiring to see that regardless of where one start from, there's that room for growth in monitoring evaluation. With a background in physics and biological sciences, we cannot just but be inspired with your story. Thank you for letting us know. So now to my third question. Yeah, maybe I stick with your lectures before we go back to Edikan. You mentioned, high prevalence of HIV, and then it drove you to volunteer. From there, you found yourself in monitoring evaluation. So maybe you can let us know why, what was the motivation from your voluntary, roles? What was the motivation to actually major into monitoring evaluation? Basically, why M&E?
I would say, like I said, that coming from a region where HIV prevalence was high, and of course, from the villages that I grew up, seeing so many children who had lost either one of their parents or both their parents, and they were struggling to either get access to education on one or the other. Even those that were in school, the stigma, those that were already HIV positive, or the stigma they would get from the fellow students, likely because they lost their parents to HIV. Getting this opportunity to go to schools and do voluntary work in terms of mentorship, in one or the other, it gave me a chance to look at things differently. Of course, trying to connect dots on how a teacher who is teaching this kid at the end of the term or at the end of the year, who is confident says that this is a very stupid kid or is very lazy in class, he cannot pass. But to me, who has talked to this kid and how they are psychologically being tortured, how they do go through their day-to-day life, I wouldn't say that this kid has really failed. And for me, connecting dots that would later inform how a human being would perform without looking at the end goal as an end to itself, in one or the other, closely really connected me to monitoring people's behaviors, to monitoring the projects that these organizations were running within these schools, that were running within the households, and these people that were HIV positive then. And in one or the other, when you read the details, you really feel like this is little monitoring before I even evaluate that closely gradually connected me to this career as an M&E person, because whenever someone gives me an answer, I just say, that's why I wouldn't even answer that question of yes and no, because I feel like there is no yes and no question. For so many times, if you don't give someone a chance to give the background of why they're saying yes or no, you'll get it wrong. So the same way I would say for this very question that you have just put up, Godwin, that the chance to understand people before I make judgment pushed me to M&E to really understand things, the way things work.
Thank
Back to
you.
you, Gadi. Yeah.
Thank you. The chance to understand people was the rationale behind you venturing into monitoring evaluation. I'll leave the second part of the question about what you love most about an M&E job later on. Let me move to Edikan. Why monitoring evaluation? I mean, having a biological background, that you could have, told that part, and then now in monitoring evaluation, what was the motivation to move from being a teacher to a researcher and then in monitoring evaluation today?
It's very interesting that Aloysious shared that that story, being able to have the full background understanding before making an assessment of an individual. And I'm saying that because I would like to take some few steps back to talk about my journey a little bit. So in Nigeria, for the folks who are not from Nigeria, after your university degree, you are expected as a young graduate to serve the country for 1 year in a different state, in a different region. So fun fact, Nigeria is a very, very multi-ethnic country. We have well over 250 ethnic groups with 500 plus languages. And so the original intent, like we have been led to believe with respect to this 1 year mandatory service program, was to integrate the country to help folks understand the different backgrounds of these different tribes. Because when Nigeria was conceptualized, it led to a lot of strife. There were lots of, misunderstandings. And so that program was initiated as one of the ways to help integrate members of the country better, and also to have people give people a first chance at serving and working in different capacities. But you will have to do this in a different state, a different country. And if you do not do this, you don't get to have the opportunity at jobs and employment that you would normally want. So it's mandatory. Most folks just want to be done with their schools and then get the NYC program, National Youth Service Corps program, done so that they would, check it off their to-do list and go on with their lives. I was one of those guys. But that 1 year of service was a pivotal year in my career. I was sent to the northern part of the country. And over there, one of the things we used to read, or I knew as a theory, was how poor the public education system is and how bad it is for many children who are, one, maybe not able to access education, or two, are actually in school and are not learning. So those seemed theoretical until I moved to the northern part of Nigeria and served, and actually got a chance in seeing this thing firsthand. And so that was when it dawned on me that the problem was really serious. And that's how I wanted to, in some capacity, be a part of changing the narrative, being a part of the solution. And I stumbled on a program, a fellowship program, Teach for Nigeria program, for anybody who would want to know. It was about leadership, helping young people to hone their leadership skills and, provide solution to the educational problems by, training them and placing them in schools, public schools, to have a first-hand experience of being a part of the solution. And in the long term, continue on that trajectory of advocating for educational change. That is how I got into, education intentionally, I would say, because I used to teach, but again, for my pockets, essentially just to keep going. So it was there that I really knew that for every action or for every effect we see, there's an underlying reason and cause to it, right? And that was through that program. And it was in that program that I started developing the interest and the passion to be able to connect the dots. I'm going to borrow the words of Aloysious. For me, the passion, the interest to connect the dots between the behaviors I would see in the class and what is fundamentally the root cause of that. And then, of course, what interventions can be brought in. So that was how my interest, picked, particularly in M&E. Of course, I did not really see it as M&E per se at the time. I was seeing it as one of those things you would do as a teacher who is interested in seeing the success of their students. So yes, what motivated you? That was the starting line, right? And the program that I participated in has this capstone project that you have to do towards in the concluding phase of your fellowship program with them, where you have to initiate a project to a perceived problem in the community and then provide solution. And that was there that I first, would I say, maybe not first because I used to do that in the classroom, but that was where I intentionally started applying some of the concepts of M&E, diagnosing problems, then using the diagnosis to then design a solution and continually monitoring it to see that the intervention or the solution is working and, changing the cause as time went on. So my first motivation was when I intentionally connected with the problem that persists and that kept students away from school or kept students away from learning even when they were in school. And that was largely through first the NYC program that the country mandatorily expects everyone to go through, and two, through the fellowship program that I participated in. That's how that journey started. And of course, with M&E, things usually come together, at the right time. But those were the bits and pieces that really, really piqued my interest and motivated me to get into this field.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edikan, for the detailed response. I mean, listening to both of you speak, I just got this message that, most people tend to see M&E as that career space that there are always jobs. They tend to see the lofty things, the per diem, the travels that M&E guys, get to enjoy. Then they get the fact that, you're there to solve a problem. Aloysious mentioned his drive was, seeing people affected with HIV, and then he started volunteering, and that ultimately gave birth to the career he's, into today. And then for you, the drive was, education, the decay in the education system. You got in through the fellowship to just contribute your quota to building the education system in Nigeria, and then that related to you being an M&E person from the lessons and the learning you got from the fellowship. So here again, the lesson, yeah, even though M&E is what you want, there's always a problem that is waiting for you to solve. In the course of solving that problem, you evolve and then M&E comes about. Thank you so much for sharing. And then let's move on. I think with your responses, you have touched on question 4. What was your first role? Edikan was, he started off teaching at the Aloysious, started off volunteering. But then, okay, maybe I can take the second part of the question. How did you land that role? What were the specific skills and resources or network that help you achieve that?
Yeah, do you want me to kick it off?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, that's so I think I would answer your question from this perspective. How did you land that role? So I would imagine, how did you land your first corporate role in M&E? Would that be the question?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, my first corporate role in M&E proper. So the program that I participated in, the Teach for Nigeria Fellowship, wonderful fellowship. I highly 100% recommend to anybody who is interested in educational leadership at all levels. Again, leadership through education. There's a myriad of opportunities that come through that program: training opportunities, mentorship opportunities, and it was through exposure to those training opportunities that I participated in what's it called? An M&E training, essentially. Of course, we had bits and pieces of that and around, how do you design an impactful project? How do you monitor the project? But there was a particular training where the idea was to train folks in monitoring and evaluation. I think more specifically in education monitoring and evaluation. And that was when I got a full sense of the method to the madness that I had, I would say. And after the fellowship program, I took on that training program in the hopes that it would help me for a certain program I was applying for in a different country. But after taking that training course, I was ignited. I just wanted to get into this field because it made all the sense. You could basically just sit down and find out the whys behind everything that's happening. And so after that training, an opportunity came. I started applying for research roles after the fellowship program. I got a couple of them, but an opportunity came from the organization for people who were interested in, pioneering a monitoring and evaluation role in the organization. And I was reached out to, and I interviewed alongside a couple of other people. And I was lucky and fortunate to land the role. So that was how I landed my first corporate role in monitoring and evaluation. Yeah, that's about it for me. Do you want me to talk about the specific skills and resources that helped me? I think I've touched on that as well. The trainings that came with the program ignited that interest, and I started researching and learning about monitoring and evaluation as a whole. It was complex because the more you learned, the more you knew that there was a lot more to this. Right? There's a lot more to it, and you could, in time, decide to niche in one area if you want, or maybe be a generalist, as some people are. But the skills that really helped me, I think, would be one. Maybe that's not a very hard skill, but it was curiosity for a start. I was really, really curious. I still am, I would say, about a lot of things. I always wonder what's the fundamental reasons behind things. What evidence could you get to make sense of what's happening? So curiosity was top of list for me. And then the second one was, I think, the analytical skills that you would get as a graduate of any institution, right? Just being able to make sense of the multiple information that you would get. So it was a little bit easier for me because whenever there was a lot of information, it became easier for me because I could almost synthesize information very speedily. I could fine-tune things, and those analytical skills were really helpful in helping me ease into the field, I would say. And then started building the foundation that would then propel my career eventually. Back to you, Godwin. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, for letting us know how you landed your first role in monitoring evaluation, and of course, some of the skills, curiosity, analytical skills, ability to, make sense of, stuff, how that helped you to land your first M&E role, and then the network that you got in the fellowship. Thank you so much, sir. So over to you, Aloysius. What was your first role in monitoring evaluation? How did you land that role? Because I mean, for entry level personnel, it's always difficult. People tend to ask, how can I get into this M&E? I've taken courses, I've volunteered, but yet the job are not coming. So I would just basically want to learn from your experience. Were there some maybe specific skills that helped you, or resources or network that you leveraged to land your first role? Over, sir.
So that I'd left my mic on. My background is really not the best in terms of noise. Sorry about that, Godwin. Like I just said earlier, that with this voluntary work, of course, as time went on, trying to do mentorship with these children, trying to defend their educational results, trying to defend their response to their education. At some point, of course, I took on a role as a research assistant. And of course, this position provided me with an opportunity to at least dive deeply into the educational research, trying to explore how the health, the psychological bit of these children would, in one or the other, influence their learning outcomes, like I'd said earlier. Of course, with that, I learned much that for me to be on any platform to defend my children that I was giving mentorship, it really needed me to have a lot of information in terms of data that is well analyzed, that is well interpreted, that would serve me well to have a good defense for my children. And of course, not having a defense per se, but I always wanted to have a reason for everything, even when I was growing up. So during this time, of course, I began to realize that there is a very intricate relationship between education outcomes and the broader society that people do live in, especially to these kids that I was giving support. And it became very clear to me that for us to have effective decision making in everything, in the education, in their health, in HIV treatment, care, even prevention, it was very, very important to rely on sound data. And that sometimes required, of course, rigorous research, correction of data, and some elements of evaluation practices that a person should have by then to have a very holistic support to these children. And at some point, I would say, while working on this research, being a research assistant, slowly I was really introduced into the M&E world because of my interest then, that I was trying to connect dots, to correct the information, of course, both quantitative and qualitative data that was coming through, because sometimes numbers can lie, as we'll maybe discuss later on. But as I try to correct stories about these children, document these stories, very brief stories about them, and I was very elaborate on how these stories were affecting everything to do their medication, the way they're taking their medication, the way the education results were affected in one or the other. And this slowly introduced me to the monitoring and evaluation world. Of course, I learned about the transformative power of high quality data. In one way, how it was shaping policies and programs within the organization I chaired then that I was supporting. I really found this very, 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 very important, that whenever I could go to express myself in terms of the mentorship sessions I had with enough data, I could always win in case I wanted a budget or a budget increment. Whenever I had information, whenever I had stories, documented data, I would always win. They would always give me budgets. They would always favor me in one or the other. So in all this made me learn that it sparked an excitement about me, about the potential to be very, very influential in one or the other if you have information, to influence decisions if we have data. And of course, literally, it's people that we don't give appreciation. Of course, there was a lot of encouragement from my mentors, because then as a young person, you have your degree, you have these people that you have graduated with that are already in schools or in factories that are doing some little bit of science, technology, and physics, and were earning some amount. You being a volunteer, of course, there were some gaps that were coming in because you do not have money as time moved on. But of course, I got some mentors within this organization that I was working with that gave me the desire to be a little bit more substantial in the impact I wanted to create within these kids. I, of course, decided to take a leap into M&E, and I think it's one of the most pivotal decisions that I would admit I've ever taken in my life. Back to you, Godil.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for giving us detailed response of how, your mentoring children helped you to hone the skills that today are useful in monitoring evaluation. Thank you again for that response. Moving on, I will be taking our fifth questions. Would like to hear some of the challenges that you face. M&E is just like any other career space. Most time people tend to see the positive. M&E guys are well paid. They get opportunities for workshop, conferences. Nobody think about the sleepless night or some of the challenges that you face. So I'd like to hear from you, particularly during the early days of your career. What were some of the challenges that you faced when you started off? And then how did you overcome them? I'll start with Edikan. Over to you, sir.
Yes, thanks, Godwin. This is an interesting question because, like I shared, my first corporate, if I would, put it that way, my first corporate experience wasn't even to understudy a senior person in the role, a mentor, anybody who had already gone ahead of me. It was to pioneer an M&E structure in the organization. That was my first experience. And so with my first experience, again, entry-level experience at that stage, it came with a lot of, would I say, mindsets, problems. I would start from there. I think my problem at this early time was, one, a mindset concern. I doubted myself a lot. It was scary. It was dreadful because I felt that every step I was going to take was always going to make me fail, right? And there was a lot of expectations and anticipation, given that this is the first time this system was going to be started in this organization. So, one, I had to deal with an imposter syndrome, and I battled that for quite a while. Two, one thing about M&E is that while you have the passion, I have the passion, had the passion, and I could see things, and it made sense to me. Many other people did not see it that way, right? So it was almost like I was in a world of my own, and the folks that I was supposed to support, work with, were in a world of their own. It felt like, there wasn't a connection between what I was doing and how it was perceived, and how, again, because it was there, I also learned it's good. Some of these challenges are good to experience them early on. That, data is not just for the sake of it, just to have data for the sake of it. All of the M&E jargons that I knew at the time, M&E's, big language, the big things that come with data analysis, evidence, and all of that, they were all in my head. But translating that to be something that would intrigue and endear other people to buy into it was a different challenge. So the second challenge was building the culture that would allow people, because with M&E, you're not working in a silo, you're not working independently, you're working with other people. And so it was around building the data culture, the data mindset of other people as well. That was second challenge. Because if the culture is there, the mindset is there, the buy-in is there, the work is easy. And then the third part of it was that, since this was a pioneer incident, it was a pioneer thing for the organization. There were lots of missing pieces that would make the work come together, right? And so my mindset, the data culture, and of course the fundamental resources required to kick something off were also missing. And then of course, the overwhelming nature of the environment at the time. Those were some of the things I had to face, starting. So how did I overcome them? The role of mentorship in a career start is very crucial, very critical. I had to speak with a couple of people, and they were very helpful in calming me down, I would say. I was young, naive, just, again, worried about too many things. And, because of the worry, not getting as much as I would have gotten done, just simply because of worrying. So mentors were really helpful and they came in very handy. Number two, reading as well and participating in as many learning opportunities as possible. I remember that I participated in many things. You would think I was preparing for a Harvard scholarship. And they were really helpful because it was in the process of participating in many of these conferences, fellowships, trainings, and courses that I learned about the concept of a learning organization. That was the first time I heard about that phrase, learning organization. And essentially, an organization whose culture revolves around using data and evidence to learn. And it starts from, building the mindset of the people who need to use the data, right? And that's usually where the success starts from. That was the aha moment for me when I learned about data for building a learning organization. And so it helped really bridge all of the big gargantuan jargons that I had in my head, all of the things I would work on, present, and and show, and to sound overtly technical, and people would lose interest. It helped me bridge the gap between that and making it simple for people to be able to grasp. It also helped me to slowly learn around building data champions, ambassadors, people who would be interested, and then working my way up from building those data champions into building the culture that I wanted that would help me, succeed in my role. And so those conferences, those fellowships, those trainings were really helpful. And again, the third part, like I would say, was working on building people's confidence in me as well, allowed me the room to start prioritizing things as they would, in a way that would make the most sense. And how did I do that? Being able to present, quick wins in as many times as possible, getting quick wins, being able to show the rationale behind what's happening versus what the data is saying versus what would happen differently. And using the data champions and the data ambassadors, I would say, that I had started cultivating when I learned about the role of data in a learning organization, using that as well to champion my cause. Those were some of the quick things that helped me in those early stages. There were a couple of them, but I mean, those were the most outstanding challenges and some of the ways that I navigated those challenges in the early days. Back to you, Godwin.
Thank you, Edikan. I must say well done to you. I can just imagine in my head, as someone who is just going to M&E for the first time, and then you are saddled with the responsibility of setting up an M&E system and process for the entire organization. This is different from what we have conventionally. M&E people, you always find maybe people starting as volunteer, assistants, or maybe at best officer, and then your own case was just to oversee the data system of organization and be able to do that. Well done to you. I hear some of the challenges, mindset, you doubting yourself and fear of failure, imposter syndrome, and then even people not even understanding what you're doing. After working tirelessly, people tend not to even understand what you're doing. But I like the aspect on how you're able to overcome them. You indulge in reading, a lot of learning, mentorship, and then conferences, and that help you to get back on your toes and of course succeed in that position. Thank you so much. Thank you for letting us know. Over to you, Aloysious. What were the challenges that you encountered when you started in monitoring evaluation? And we were also interested in knowing what are the strategies that help you succeed when you face those challenges.
Thank you, Godwin. Of course, a little, of course, similar to Edikan. Me coming up and growing up from village, and I think it should be an African practice or problem that I think my first time to interact with a computer was in my last year of university for my first degree, and you realize that the M&E work likely is going to push you to at least Word and Excel almost on a daily basis. And those would be some of the challenges that any other person coming from as rural as I was would experience. But I understand Edikan has already touched that bit of the skill set, the skill that you really need as an M&E person to do your work. And of course, I wouldn't say anymore. I always use YouTube up to today whenever I have any gaps to learn anything. But for me, that is not my biggest, that was never my biggest problem because I would understand. And I think it's a common problem even here in Africa that I don't know whether it's the case in Nigeria. You guys are a little bit, I think, ahead of us, but computers and our education system is not appreciative of what we're preparing our generation, future generation to be. That said, for me, my biggest challenge that I faced then was seeing monitoring and evaluation as a role and a job to be done by the monitoring and evaluation person. And I think generally, as you read in my bio, I've walked through all these organizations. I've worked with local CBOs, NGOs, up to date with the international organizations. They all have different challenges, but one key thing, I think Edmond also, sorry, Edikan also talked about it a little bit, the culture, is that people see M&E as an M&E role. And tell you, to at least to share with my experience, you realize that literally for you to do M&E, everyone within your organization should be doing M&E in one way or the other if we were to discuss details of what M&E should be. Otherwise, all the dots that you want to connect, you want information, and this information will never be there at your disposal. Neither would you have resources to go down and run each and every part of your project field or the program field. So for you to have enough information, every person of that program, of that project must be supportive in one way or the other. If it is to have to be admission of data correction tools, admission or correction of this data as it come through, it will never be your role as an M&E person because you never be there. You never be there what the program people do. And for me, the appreciation that I introduced in the organization beyond doing research with them that now I transition to an M&E officer in the organization, the appreciation that I introduced into the organization to understand that really if we to have M&E was supposed to be everyone's role with me spearheading or as the responsible person that had to, if it is data correction tools, to train each and every person within the organization to have a very honest understanding of these data correction tools and how to use them. If it was about qualitative data, success stories, and the rest, all the information that I would really need to do my work had to be brought in by other people from different departments. So the biggest chunk of work that I really did, I think in my first 6 months of my first role as an M&E officer, was to bring this understanding amongst people that M&E is an organizational duty. It's a culture that we should have as an organization. And I would take it to have information ready, but for that information to be available, everyone must be responsible in one way or the other. I think that's something I can share for me as one of the biggest challenge. And it is one of the same challenge that I always hear from the M&E counterparts or these organizations that were giving capacity building currently in my current position within the country. Back to you, Godwin.
Well, thank you so much, sir. I think you've said something that's very profound. M&E is never a standalone, responsibility of just one person or two people in an organization. For you to succeed, everybody in the spectrum must align for M&E, to really deliver on their mandate. Thank you so much. So I would like to move I would like to proceed with speed now so that we can get to the tail end of our question and then be able to take questions from our participants. Dear participants, like I said, if there's anything that comes to mind while they are discussing, please feel free to note it down. We'll give you opportunity to ask your question at the end of this panel. So yeah, moving on, I would like to go straight to question 6. And then I'll ask question 6 together with question 7. Question 6 talking about some of the misconceptions about monitoring evaluation that you encounter. I mean, you've already started talking about them. The culture of M&E that is lacking in most organizations, the data culture that is not there. So what are some of the misconceptions that you encounter, and how do you wish to clarify them? And then you also respond to the second 7 question: how do you stay current in your monitoring evaluation? Given that M&E is evolving, where do you go to develop yourself? Mr. Aloysious already mentioned YouTube, but then maybe you can dwell more and go in more in depth. So Edikan, over to you. What are some of the misconceptions that you wish to clarify? And then how do you stay up to date in your M&E practice? Thank you, and over.
Thanks, Godwin. And Aloysious, I'd like to just acknowledge that we share a lot in common, and thank you for sharing that. And you asked the question, and you raised the point about Nigeria being way ahead of Uganda. I think the problem is very fundamental as well in Nigeria. The fundamental or the basic or the foundational learning required for the world today is missing in our public education system. So we share a similar background there, sadly, very sadly. So to your question, Godwin, what are some of the misconceptions about M&E that you have encountered? I think the first would be M&E is only for statisticians and economists, people who study statistics, economics, and of course, those are light courses. I think that's the first misconception. And typically, I see that some people, young M&E professionals, when opportunities are rolled out and they find roles, and then in reading through, they see statements like candidates must have a background in economics, statistics, and of course, if you're familiar with the job description and roles, you would see the similar things. And they then, count themselves out. They take themselves out of the question already. I think that's the first misconception. In M&E, interestingly, what typically comes ahead of every other thing is experience, right? I say this not as a matter of pride, but almost as a matter to inspire people, is that if there were 2 people applying for a position, a role in M&E, and that was, say, me, and then a university doctor, for example, applying for a particular role, chances are that I would get that role ahead of that university PhD holder doctor, right, who hasn't had experience, a field experience in M&E for a while. And that would be because of my experience. So I mentioned that to share that don't take yourself out of the question once you see a job description that outlines, candidates must have a background in X, Y, Z, and then you take a look at your own academic background and you see that you don't have it, and then you automatically just rule yourself out. That is a misconception. Your experience in doing it trumps the paper. No offense to any academician or academician here. So that's the first misconception, and that's mostly to give you the courage to pursue the career that you love, which is M&E, regardless. The second one is, I think we've touched on it, so I don't need to repeat that. Basically around, if you're working in an organization and you will get to say, that's the M&E guys, so I have no business there. And we've essentially dismantled that M&E is everybody's business. You cannot succeed on your role as an M&E professional without working with other people in the organization. So that's fundamentally a misconception. that you should throw out of the window, as you proceed in this career space. The third one is when people equate M&E to just data analysis. M&E has as one of its components data analysis, but it does not start and stop there. Data analysis is a skill that you require to execute, some of the functions as an M&E professional, but that's not it. You need to be able to learn how to build M&E strategies, from designing the theory of change, the results framework, or whatever framework you want to use. So outlining how that makes sense, in an observable way through indicators, and how to design the tools and the resources before you even think about analysis later on once you've collected the data, right? If you have the data analysis skills, great, that's profound, that will make things easy. But you will also need to learn the foundations of that to complement that. And I have seen some people struggle going into just learn data analysis and then go on to start looking for roles and applying for roles, and they try over and over, and they're not successful because they've left out the fundamental and the foundational component of M&E, which is learning at least the strategy side of things. How do you design a theory of change? How do you even diagnose problems, to then thinking about the solution and then building a framework out of that would make the most sense to an everyday person. So data analysis does not start and stop there as an M&E. It's just a component of M&E. I think that's one misconception that I see, and I would also love to clarify, so that I don't take too much of our time. So I'll jump straight to the next question, which is, how do you stay current, right? Am I supposed to go into that as well, Godwin?
Yes.
Great. How do I stay current with new development and trends? Just like with any field, knowledge is dynamic. The knowledge of the space is dynamic. It's always evolving. And so as you start a career, you will start seeing that it branches out into a myriad of things. For me, for example, my interest has been in M&E for strategic and organizational development. When I started learning, of course, you need to learn how to, the data side of things and how that data informs the program iteration and all of that. But I started learning that there is M&E for organizational development. And that's how my career interest gravitated over time. And so you stay current by reading. There's never enough of that. Being in communities and groups like the one you're currently in, because you always get resources and new things that you get to learn. There are 1,001 things, I'm exaggerating there, but there are 1,001 things that I have learned and improved on simply because of being in communities where new ways of working were shared. I have found different ways to synthesize information and share to different audiences, and it almost makes people feel like I can do M&E, right? That is because of the communities I have been in and being able to share some of my concerns. And also the second one, I think, is you cannot, I'm not sure if there is anyone that can say they've survived the M&E world without a mentor. Like, mentors will always give you different perspectives to things, different ways to look at things. Even they will challenge you with questions that will help you even probe further some of the things you need to read and learn and do differently. So I think that's also very important to have that. And then, of course, YouTube. We are so blessed now to have lots of resources that is domiciled in YouTube, and LinkedIn as well. Please just search for communities on LinkedIn. There are tons of resources that are shared. I follow a lot of industry experts and people that I really adore and respect, and they share a lot of new ways of doing things, new insight, and new stuff essentially around M&E. There's never enough of that. That's how I stay, abreast with current developments and I always try to apply them, because knowledge is knowledge. It becomes power when it is applied, essentially. Thank you.
Very well said. Thank you so much, Edikan, for sharing with us some of your go-to places for personal development. You mentioned LinkedIn, you mentioned community of practice. I mean, just emphasizing the importance of belonging to these groups. And then you too, our almighty free university, you leverage that as well. Thank you for sharing with us. And then one takeaway from me is that M&E is not just, it's not all about data analysis. People tend to, okay, I can use Excel, so I am qualified to do a monetary evaluation. Of course, that is just a component of it. Thank you for highlighting that. And I would like to move to Aloysious in Uganda to answer this question. What are some of the misconceptions that you have faced being a monitoring evaluation practitioner? And then how do you stay current, given that monitoring evaluation is always evolving, and then there are new ways and approaches of doing things? Over, sir.
I think, thank you, Godwin. I think Edikan has really exhausted this part. I would really say that I share a similar opinion that many people see M&E as a donor requirement. They see M&E as an accountability tool. But we all understand now that besides being an essential aspect for accountability, M&E is really also about learning and adaptation within our programs, within our projects. It really serves to understand and give us really what works, understanding what does not work and why, so that we can improve and be innovative or be adaptive in the way we take decisions. And I would say that regardless of whether the donor wants you to have an M&E person or to do M&E, it would be very important as an organization to have an M&E unit or section within a project or program. And I think I would also equally share the same feeling with him about the other second misconception about numbers don't lie. There's the way M&E people always come and throw their profession around when they tell the rest of the teams, numbers don't lie, numbers don't lie. That's what I've just analyzed. This is what the data says, numbers don't lie. You know, as you grow in the profession, you really understand, like Edikan has just said, that correction of data and data analysis, especially the quantitative data, is just another element or another small element in M&E. And when you find these international organizations, they go on even to have data analysts. They have data teams and data analysts, and they want the M&E people or person to be fed with data that has already been analyzed. And you'd ask literally, if you have just entered the profession, that then what is the M&E person doing if there is a data analyst within the organization? But when you give it time, you really understand that while data is crucial, M&E involves a lot of context understanding stakeholder perspectives, the qualitative insights, understanding why and the reasons behind the numbers, which is very, very important as equivalent to the numbers themselves that you're presenting. If you're presenting pie charts, you're presenting bar charts with the numbers, you must be in a very good position as you grow in the profession to understand the reasons behind these numbers. Why? And for me at this level, I would say that I don't even need to have the numbers analyzed in my profession to know that I'm doing M&E. I can ask my juniors in the department to just give me slides. My role currently is to make sure that I give interpretation to these numbers and understand reasons behind these numbers. And I think it's some of the areas that Edikan has had just exhausted, just to make an addition to that. And of course, lastly, as you've asked where the go-to place, I love LinkedIn. Of most recent, I really love LinkedIn, I should say. We have a lot of community of practice. We do have a lot of community of practice for USAID partners in Uganda. All the activities, over 74 activities in the country. We meet on annual basis. We also share. We have WhatsApp platforms. We have quarterly sessions that we do share. Of course, we do a lot of knowledge sharing and experience sharing within different activities for USAID. But I would also say, as Edikan has said, I frequently visit YouTube whenever I am sort of what to do. In case I have any challenge, I always go to YouTube and LinkedIn. I think, thank you, and back to you, Godwin.
Great. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing with us. I was just laughing to myself, when you're answering, particularly when you mentioned how M&E guys, we throw themselves up and talk about how data does not lie. So just a fun story that comes to mind. I remember sometimes back in Lagos, I was facilitating a session and I made that statement that data does not lie. I made my presentation. So after this, the session, someone walked up to me and asked this question. That's did you say data does not lie? That why did you say so? And I had to sit him down. I was okay, yeah, that shouldn't have come from me. Data can actually lie depending on how it was crafted. But sometimes we say this thing unknowingly, data actually can lie. So thank you for sharing that with us. And we'll just go straight to number 8, and then we'll take number 8 and number 9 together. So here we're talking about opportunities or benefit. It takes someone who is into the space to actually tell if there are opportunities or if there are benefits. So this question basically is trying to understand is M&E actually, profitable? Are there opportunities that maybe you wouldn't have gotten if you're not a male person? Because if I'm actually doing what I'm doing and I have the same opportunity, then why M&E? So we'd like to know what are some of the opportunities or fringe benefits you have enjoyed being an M&E. I mean, exclusive opportunities being an M&E person. And then we would like you to also respond to number 9. Looking back, what is that one thing you wish you had known or you have done differently? Over to you, Edikan.
Thanks, Godwin. What are some of the opportunities or fringe benefits I have enjoyed being an M&E professional? I will respond to that in 2 folds. Number one, because I like staying grounded as well. Number one, one of the fundamental and interesting opportunities I've had as an M&E professional is being able to experience the stories of different communities in ways that I know normally I wouldn't have. I have consulted for different projects outside of education, even though education and youth development is my core. I have been into spaces where I have met with people, vulnerable people, listen to their stories, and they just make you get grounded again. They just take you back to the ground and just basically they humble you. The folks I have gotten to meet in the course of traveling to different places, listening to their stories, connecting to their stories, they really have expanded my worldview about a lot of things. I know I'm a different person simply because of this exposure. That is one of the most profound benefits I have had. I no longer jump into conclusions about things. I no longer see people just at face value and draw conclusions. I'm more patient right now simply because of it. That exposure, getting to live the stories or experience the stories that have warranted the interventions that these sort of places have gotten to. That's the most important thing that I would like to mention. That always keeps me grounded and makes me grateful and makes me try to be a better person by the day. That's one. The second one is that, of course, I have had to travel way more than I would have in maybe any other space. I come from a very humble background. And because of the role, the profession, I've had to travel to different states in the country and different countries out of Nigeria as well. And so as you grow and expand your capabilities and expand the network, these are some of the things that would naturally come with the role, the travel experiences. And of course, now, another benefit of this field is that as you're growing and expanding your network, you no longer have to, or at least I no longer have to, in some way, really apply for things again. Things just come from referrals. Gigs, opportunities just come through referrals. again, very easily. And it's almost like it's a field that is so needed. Once you're starting off with your outside of it may seem a little bit far-fetched, but as you get into the role, you expand yourself, you apply yourself, you stay abreast of what you do, you put yourself out there to take on even pro bono stuff, because I can't count the number of things I've done pro bono for free. And simply because of that, built networks and relationships that have brought in opportunities that, sometimes would amaze me myself, I would say. And so, yes, that is very common with M&E as you grow. Yeah, I think those opportunities are come knocking. I mean, that's what most people would want to be grateful for, because yeah, I don't see many other fields have that very readily. Of course, maybe they do as you go along the line, but M&E specifically, there's not as many experts in the field as you would find, as you would think. And so if you get into it, stay grounded, get good at what you do, these opportunities come knocking on your door. You don't have to go looking for them. And so I think that's one of the fringe benefits, of course. And there are many others, but I thought I should mention those as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maybe you can just respond to number 9 together. What is that one thing? Just in few lines.
Yes.
You wish you had
What is that one thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you wish
that's
you
one
had
thing.
or done differently.
I would have done differently.
Mm.
I would say, yeah, of course, I started doing them, of course, as I learned them, but investing in networking and relationship, not networking in the sense of what it's seen today. Of course, I have a bias for how networking is defined today, which I feel is very predatory. Basically, striking up conversations or meeting people just so that, you get to benefit from them afterwards, right? I feel it's very predatory how networking is defined now. But genuine relationship, genuine conversations. I think I am a very introverted person. I keep to myself. I think it's just a role that has made me somewhere come out of my shell. But that's one thing I think I would have done differently, invested more in relationship building, because I have seen the power that it holds, right? I have seen the power that it holds. Sometimes it makes me wonder, am I really great at what I do, or just what's the fundamental reason behind some of these, interesting experiences that I'm having that others are not necessarily, do. When I talk of that, I see that some of them, it's down to the levels of relationship I have built. Of course, when I started knowing about it, again, not from a predatory sense, but from a very genuine point of view, building relationships and staying connected, staying grounded. Yeah, that's one thing I would have said I would have started doing early on. And then second one would be not looking at things in silos, right? It used to be about the numbers in my head, but there's also the side of how well do you build your capability to invest in other people to make your work go well. And that's why I shared some of my early struggles starting. I started from a point of, I know what I'm doing and I'm doing it. You guys are not seeing what I'm seeing, right? I had to start, of course, with time, start learning the art of cultivating, stakeholder management, stakeholder stewarding. I think I would have started off better if I had learned that skill, if I had honed that skill properly. So those are the two things I wish I would have done differently starting, I guess.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. Relationship cannot be overemphasized. Thank you. Then I would like to hear from Aloysious. What are some of the opportunities that M&E has afforded you that ordinarily you wouldn't have, gotten them? And then looking back, you have moved up the ladder over so many years of practice. What is that one thing that you wish you have done differently starting off?
I don't know, Godwin, whether you brought Edikan simply because he knows what I know or because he or things cut across the profession, but I appreciate that, Edikan. I would say one of the biggest benefits that I've really got or picked from M&E is really knowledge, knowledge to understand things. And I don't know whether there is any other profession within the organization setting that cuts across all, besides the chiefs of party and some executive directors who are really interested anyway, not all. I think currently for someone to do M&E, you must have a very good understanding of programming, how things are done. And I would actually uh, uh, answer these two questions, of course, together that it's in one or the other something that I didn't do in the earlier stage of my career. That then I thought if I learned Excel well, I was a guru in M&E, and I didn't give a chance to myself to learn how programs people do their work, to learn how the finance teams were doing their work, to learn how that in one way or the other was affecting the program's work and therefore affecting the numbers that I was receiving in at my desk then. And now what M&E has really given me is the power to understand things, because currently our current M&E now is more or less of a program management, more or less a program management specialist, understanding right away from the design, from the budget, implementation, and then the numbers come through. So by the time you receive the numbers, you really understand where they are coming from, how much was invested in, which activities were done. So all that knowledge now in food security, the knowledge in now democracy, human rights and governance, the knowledge in health, the knowledge in agriculture partners that have supported to allow trying to understand the way they do their things so that I can monitor and evaluate their work, has really given me the power and authority to currently stand in front of any donor project, be it climate, be it agriculture, be it education, be it health, because my role requires me to know what people do before I monitor and evaluate what they do. And that only always gives you a power and pushes you to always go back, read, understand. And I think it's one of the biggest benefits that I will sing even when I'm to die tomorrow about this profession. And of course, I cannot downplay the other aspect of collaboration and networking that it gives you exposure. Uganda has got 100 and I think now 52 districts. I don't know any district in this country I've not reached. I don't know any East African country I've not reached, both on ground and on plane. So the exposure the profession gives you, the understanding, the appreciation, the people, learning from them, understanding them. If now, like today, now I have a new friend in Godwin in Nigeria that if I have to be in Lagos or anywhere, I'll just call out to you, any of you guys here, and say, I'm coming. Can we have a cup of tea? So the exposure it gives you, it's really amazing. It's really amazing. The connection I have with district teams, with different ministries in the country because of my work. I really appreciate that. And I would say it's one of the biggest things that I can talk about. And if I'm to go straight and very fast, quickly on question 9, is some of the things I didn't foresee them at the earlier stage of my career, trying to understand what was the role and importance of each and every department and unit then in the way the data comes through for the organization to report to the donors. And it's one thing that our wish I'd learned, I'd read things. The times I was in Earth, our wish I was understanding how implementation was going. I think I would have been a better person back then that I am now. Thank you, Godwin.
Well, thank you so much, sir. Very, very, very detailed. I think there's one mistake most of us in our early stages of our career do. We focus on, our role. We don't get to interact with other people to know what is happening. Thank you for letting us know. So moving on, our time is we're left with a few minutes. So I would like to just take these last 3 questions together, maybe 1 minute. what is that one project that you worked on in your M&E career that you're very much proud of? And then given that, monitoring and evaluation, when we see job opportunities, they are requesting for years, 5 years, 3 years. So the question is there prospect for young and emerging evaluators in the M&E field today, given that, some things can be done with AI? And then what advice would you give to young professionals who are looking to break into the monitoring evaluation space? So I think these three can go forward. So over to you, Edikan.
Yeah, thanks, Godwin. What's the one project you worked on in your M&E career that you're most proud of? What I'm always most proud of is whenever there's a connection between the hypothesis I made and how the results, turn out to be. And I think I have seen that mostly in the educational projects I've worked on. But the more recent one that let me talk about this one. The more recent one that I think comes to mind is it was a MasterCard project. It's a referral project. It was a referral essentially. It's why I mentioned you will love it as you go to the career. I was referred to an organization. So is there a way the practice can be Okay, thank you. It's the most recent one, it was a referral. The organization was struggling to make sense of the donor money that they had gotten for the project that they're working on. And there was a risk of their not getting a renewal for the next year. And somebody would just recommended me to the organization. It was scary because, again, imagine an organization is almost spending on the project and then you recommend it to you. So that's a project that comes to mind because I was able to apply the data for organizational learning concepts into reviving the way the organization works and how the project. They were able to get a 3-year renewal after that. But that's the one that's most profound because rather than coming from the angle of getting the data for accountability, which of course was what they were being handed on, I steered the organization in a different direction. It was difficult to build that mindset because they were fixated on being accountable, which is good, but they missed the fundamental part, which was the culture around it. How is it applying to their day-to-days? How is it changing the way they're doing things? So I was able to get that turnaround, and they were able to get the renewal for the fund. That's the most recent one that comes to mind. Is there a prospect for young emerging evaluators in the field? 100%. Always, always, always. I think it's almost like a cliche statement now. AI is not replacing you. It is the person who does not know how to use AI in their work that will be replaced. AI is not replacing any evaluator who knows how to apply the principles and the concepts of AI in their work. AI is not going to build the context for you. Aloysious mentioned it earlier. You, as an evaluator, are the one who understands the context, the nuances around whatever it is, and you are the one that will make the most sense of that context and apply AI in maybe synthesizing information, in maybe helping with analysis or whatever. But evaluation is beyond data analysis. And maybe that's where the mindset might come in from. Oh, AI is already doing data analysis. What am I doing? That's because there's a limitation in your understanding of monitoring and evaluation. The context, the nuances, the stories, and the rationales is what you have. The strategic thinking part that you have in applying whatever data you have and whatever insight that AI gives you is the power that you have. AI does not have that context. AI does not have that connection, that human connection. AI does not have that human story. AI does not have that. And so, yes, 100%, there's always a space for everybody in the M&E space, especially those who are able to leverage AI in their work. And what advice would you give to young professionals who are looking to break into the space? Be curious. I will always say that. Be curious. The first point of, I don't want to call it failure, but the first point of what would be failure is when there's a limitation in the mind. I know it sounds like all those aspire to perspire talking points, but it's not. Curiosity will drive you very far in this space. And of course, staying grounded. Being able to understand the nitty-gritty of the organization of your program, seeing things from a bird's eye view is the power that every M&E person have. And so always seek for opportunities to learn other aspects of the organizations, just like Aloysious mentioned, because that's the one power that M&E professionals almost always have ahead of every other person. That systematic bird eye view of everything within an organization, because they're able to draw the connections that others wouldn't have. And so being grounded to stay and learn every component of the work that you're doing. Yeah, I think those will be the two most profound things out there. And of course, just always learn. You die when you don't learn. Yeah, that's about it. And thank you.
Yeah,
Back to you,
thank
Godwin.
you. All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Always learn, be curious. Thank you so much for some of the insight that you have shared. So I would like to move to Aloysious to respond to these three questions at once. What is that one project that you're most proud of? And then the prospect for young and emerging evaluators, and then your advice for young professionals who want to transition into monitoring and evaluation. If you're on the call, please, I'd like to stay. We are getting to the point where I've seen questions coming through, so just hold on. Once we are done with this, we'll take your question and you'll be free to unmute yourself and then ask your question. I see one in the chat box already. I'm going to take that when Aloysious is done. So over, sir. What is that one project you're most proud of?
I really cannot say any better with the current project I am having. We're doing civil society strengthening in Uganda, and currently it has really given me a little honest understanding of my role as an M&E person, trying to learn from the dots. We have built systems, we have built capacity of staff, we have built systems from M&E, from finance, all system procurement, blah, blah. But you realize that there are a number of organizations without performance indicators that have failed to move up levels. And in this, when you try to understand and collect dots, understanding the governance in those organizations, how the boards are influencing both network, umbrella organizations, and individual organizations, understanding how leadership can curtail the growth of an organization, the culture. So the current project that I'm really having has given me another view of seeing M&E, trying to learn the gaps, trying to learn from different areas beyond the data. And I really appreciate that. I understand members from the call, in case they can pick interest, they can read about it, the civil society strengthening activity in Uganda. And you said, and I can't say any more better about that. I'm really proud of it, regardless of so many other projects that I've touched in food security, in health, especially maternal health, supporting mother than the rest. There are so many aspects and prospects where the young emerging evaluators can really break into the field. I really do not see any fear about AI. I know AI will be here. The only thing we can be proud of is it will complement our work. If it is that interesting, we should run it and see how it can complement our work, but have no worries. I can just call whoever, any young person, grown, old, but has got an ish in M&E. I can tell you, I want to remind you that your journey may not always follow a straight path, just like mine did and did it at some point. But embrace your unique background and experiences, use them as your strength, and remember that the world of M&E is a powerful space where data meets action. Of course, sometimes be curious, be persistent, but most importantly, never underestimate the impact you can make. Whether you're collecting data in field or analyzing it from your desk, know that you have the potential to shape policies, to create a positive change within your community. And I know you'll be a very important person in the next 5 years. Following maybe could be this webinar or any other aspect of learning you've had in M&E, you'll at least say this was a good journey worth walking. I don't know whether we have any other time to say any other thing, but I would say thank you for letting me share my journey with you guys. And of course, I look forward to share and seeing your path in M&E, how M&E will lead you or will take you. And I'm very certain that at some point we'll meet. Please, back to you, Godwin.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for sharing that with us, and thank you for staying true to this point. So over now, we would like to hear from the participants. Perhaps there's anyone with question. So, but before we go to the participant, usually when we get to this part of the question, I always ask maybe if you have resources that you can share, like, what we call takeaway in Nigeria, party souvenir. So if you have any collection of resources you'd like to share with us, we'll be glad to distribute that to the participant and then to the M&E community. So we'll move on to Q&A now. If you have any question, please signify by a raise of hand, or you can make use of the chat box and drop your question. We'll take it, and then the speakers will be able to answer. And if you want to direct your question, please feel free to direct it to either Edikan or Aloysious, so that we'll tailor it to them to respond to you. So to do justice to the Q&A section, Mr. James, are you on the call? If you're on the call, please can you unmute and then take it over from me?
All right, thank you so much, Godwin, and many thanks to our speakers. We've learned so much from you both, and I'm very sure that our participants, they also have questions to have. Please, as Godwin rightly said, if you have any question, please, you can either raise your hands or you drop the question on the chat box, then so that we can attend to them. Thank you.
I think there's one in the chat box from Esther. Do you want to start with that?
Yes, question from Esther. I think we should start from there. Esther asks that aside from short courses, what will you advise M&E professional who is just starting to do to shaping their skills? And also, how does one work with a mentor who is outside their works, employers, and organizations to enhance their skills? Edikan, over to you, and
okay,
the other speaker also. Thank you.
Yeah, so apart from short courses, what would you advise an M&E professional who is just starting to do to sharpen their skills? What they usually say. Typically, clarity comes in the doing. You can learn as much as you want to learn, but I mean, with the way the world works and with the way the human brain, the human mind works, essentially, if you are not applying that lesson or that knowledge, it makes no difference in the long run to you. So, learning on the job is the best thing. That's what I would just tell you right now. Find an opportunity in whatever way to always apply whatever you're learning. And that would be one of the strengths I would say that I have. Anything I learn, I want to experiment. I want to try it out. I want to see how it works. Or at least I want to give it a shot, even if it doesn't pan out well. And you learn from that mistake and you do better next time. So sharpening of skills will always come when you do, when you experiment, when you try, and then when you learn from it. That's the one thing. The second question is, how does one work with a mentor who is outside their employer organization to enhance their skills on the job? One of the ways I would use my experience, one of the ways that I have seen my mentorship relationship work is trying to build a cadence of how we meet and talk about things. These folks, your mentor, whoever he or she is, will always be busy. But if there is some sort of cadence, like the number of times you get to meet, maybe once a quarter, once a month, however free your mentor is able to, give you that audience, I think setting that more strategically, setting that cadence usually works. Otherwise, it will most times be up to chance. The other way I have seen my mentorship relationship work is when sometimes I offer to support them in whatever it is that they're doing, like just out of the blues, and they say, "Is there anything I can do to make your life easy today, this week, this month?" Right? Just my schedules are crazy, I know, but I try to once in a while offer that. Is there anything I can do to make your life easy this month? They may have, but they may not have something to give up. Some of the times they do, and I do that to more or less display that I do not want this to be a one-directional relationship. I do not want this to be a parasitic relationship. That I want to also be of value in some way to you. And I think that's what that has helped with is to, I don't know, it has built some sort of accountability system in their own ways to give me audience sometimes or whenever they're able to give me the audience. I try to not make it a one-directional relationship. Yeah, that's one of the ways. And of course, I try to not make it just about the work. With my mentors, we talk about many things. I follow up. For example, one of my mentors, she's in Wales. We talk about there's a particular TV series that we both enjoy, and we keep an eye for it. So whenever a sequel or a prequel or the next season is coming out, we talk about it. We also have some interest around sports, football particularly. We share banters and all of that. Trying to not make it just about work has helped foster that relationship. And it makes the audience that they give me when it comes to the professional side of things even more profound. Yeah, I think that's how it has worked for me. I would love to also hear how it has worked for Aloysious as well.
Thank you so much, Edikan. Please, to you, Mr. Aloysious, what do you think? Any addition to that, please, from your end?
James, I was just learning from the submission. I really didn't pick the question well. In case you can just read the question back for me, James.
Okay. The questions are in two folds. The first is, aside from short courses that we've mentioned that one can lay hands on YouTube and other channels, what will you also advise an M&E professional who is just starting a career to shaping their skills? And that's the first leg of the question. Then the second is, how does one work with a mentor who is outside their employers' organizations to enhance their skills on the job?
Yeah.
Please, do you get that?
Thank you. I just picked elements, I think, from the submissions of Edikan. And I think closely the two, one would fit the other, that a mentor would be the best person. However, sometimes mentors may not have that time. I may not have enough time for you, but in case God blesses you with one, I think the best thing you can do is to grab every second he gives you to really understand what he's sharing. But I think there are also some elements of learning from work. I would really say no one is self-made in life, but I've really taught myself a number of things. Of course, you learn from people. People make submissions. From submissions online here, attending conferences and the rest, you learn from different people. So you cannot say you're self-made. But I would say that much as you have a mentor, the best thing is to learn on the job. The best thing is to be very enthusiastic on what you're doing and reading a lot of materials. If you have an agricultural project, you don't have to read about the indicators and the indicator definitions. You have to read about the implementation. You have to understand the program side for you to know the M&E side. So that whenever you have submissions of data, you have reasons to back up the data. So I would say, if you really love this work, it is worth it. Go back, read about everything you really want to, especially in documents that have to do with M&E, but those outside M&E for programming. And if God blesses you with a mentor, you grab every second that you really get. Some people have got I've got issues with egos. Some good people really have big egos, and you working around with them sometimes is very, very challenging. You should know how to massage their egos in case you realize someone has one. Even if it's a workplace, you may find that your senior person in a department has really got a very big ego that you may not even learn from him. So you must know the politics around individuals and how you massage their egos well to learn from them and pick the best that you can. Otherwise, I would say learn by yourself as much as possible. Back to you, James.
Thank you so much for that insight. I'm very sure that our participants have picked one or two things from that. It is good for you to work very closely with your mentor. Don't make it a routine discussions. Make it a very professional one. Let it be in such a way that as they are adding value to you, you're also adding value to them. All right, thank you so much. To the next question, I think I will just invite Abdullah Ibrahim. Please unmute and ask your question.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you to the organizers and to the panelists. My question is a bit simple. What are some attitudes that one aspiring to work or excel in this space should make effort not to have attitudes, not to have, or attitudes to discard so that they can do well in this field? Thank you.
That's a fascinating question. Attitudes not to have. That's a very interesting one because, like I said, the first point, and I think that this is how I start answering the question, is when there's that self-limitation, usually that's how it spirals all the way down. So the first thing I would say is have a growth mindset, because the opposite of that is do not have a fixed mindset. That means you can always improve. A growth mindset means that you can learn anything. Your brain and your mind can learn absolutely anything. And that's the first thing. You can always learn, can always improve, can always grow. Nobody started knowing everything. So that's the first thing. Have a growth mindset. What not to have, do not have a fixed mindset. I think the other attitude is also, I think from a point of maybe still growth mindset, I would say, okay, let me say grit. In the early days, it may not be super rosy, I would say, especially when some organizations are not willing to provide opportunities for young folks to come in and learn and grow. I mean, that's very disheartening, actually. I think just knowing that there will always be, all you need is just one opportunity to start things and then start that journey for you, right? So grit, I would say, is the one other thing that should be top of mind, especially for early career professionals in M&E. That first opportunity is usually what might discourage a lot of folks, because you would hear, oh, I have tried and it's not working. And it's very easy to pivot. But the interesting thing about M&E is that you do not necessarily have to start from a paid position. I know it sounds crazy, especially given today's economy. There are many folks who are running projects, in different capacities, people trying to do good in some way. You can offer to be the M&E person, to be the guy or the lady who would help them with collecting data and helping them make sense of the data to inform what they're going to do next, and or maybe for accountability purposes. You will see a myriad of such stuff. You will see people, oh, this holiday, for example, this December is coming, people are going to do a lot of donations to orphanages, a lot of book drive. School has just resumed in Nigeria, for example. When they see folks start, with new school drives, projects around that. So look out for such opportunities, I would say. I think I'm trying to answer Ibrahim's question alongside some of the things I have seen in the chat box is the limiting mindset is the first thing you should get rid of. Like, if you stay confined there, you're not going to see opportunities. You will see opportunities as far as your mind goes. And so get rid of it. Just remember that you can get 10 million no's. All you need is just 1 year to work. And so you will need to be persistent too. So that grit is very important. And also being comfortable, right, with routine. M&E sometimes might come off as a routine activity or a routine endeavor. Sometimes, again, I'm saying that sometimes, especially in the early days, it might feel like it's a routine endeavor. Do not be comfortable with just routine. That comfort is going to limit you to learning as much as you should learn. And so that's one thing I would say, never, ever, ever be comfortable with the routine. Sometimes you might feel like the money is coming in, I don't have to do much, that's it. You're not going to grow as much as you should that way. Do not be comfortable with routine. Then, yeah, put yourself out there as much as you can. The opportunities will come in, right? Introvertedness will not work in this space. You have to put yourself out there as well. Ibrahim, I don't know if that's helpful.
Thank you so much, Edikan. I think you've attended to that question very well. And Ibrahim just affirmed that response are quite very cool. Aloysious, I don't know if you want to add in a minute to that feedback from Edikan before we call it a day.
I don't know. I don't think I can even say it any better because that response would also go back to the question that was raised here by Abdullah. Just don't give up, my brother. Don't give up. Don't give up, especially when you're crossing from one profession to M&E. The first thing that you'd really pray for is at least being there. And I've seen Elik here. It could be from Uganda. I see this Semakura name is a Ugandan name. That as you try to look for opportunities around, a number of organizations will not give you even the volunteer opportunity because here volunteers, by law, 3 months or 6 months down the road, you must be taken in as a permanent staff. But I would understand that if you have started with big organizations, it can be challenging. But there are so many organizations in this country that don't even have the M&E role. And if you could start with those ones and introduce something new to those organizations, they embrace it. If they are CBOs or these small NGOs that are upcoming, they don't have that much of a budget to facilitate an M&E person, introduce yourself there. Because for M&E, majority of the times, the first question someone will ask you is, where are you working? And if you cannot answer that because maybe you've been in a different profession, then it becomes very difficult. And I think that cuts across even other professions, I would say. So if you can volunteer and give them 2 days, if you are a teacher, you continue with your school for the other 3 days, and then within these 2 days, you continue with that voluntary work. As long as you land into that profession and make things work, it will be that first place that will take you miles, I don't know whether I can even say it any better, but that's what I can say.
Thank you so much. That is a very, very insightful one. We really want to appreciate everyone for taking time to join this call. Before I hand it over to Godwin, I just also want to add that the field of M&E is multidimensional at times. And when I say multidimensional, you could see some position opening that calls for research officer. You could see some that calls for monitoring, evaluation, and accountability. You could see some that calls for data officer and all of that. They are all interrelated, and you should not just be focused on the title that comes with monitoring and evaluation. Just like the position of Edikan now, for instance, I could recall that the first day we discussed, and Edikan told me that, oh, I'm moving to another job, and this is the position. I just told him, my friend, this is your position, no be here. So, so that is just to tell you that the field of monitoring and evaluation, for instance, is it cut across, and it cut across sectors. We are needed everywhere, and everywhere we make decisions for growth and for impact. Thank you so much. I want to hand it over to Godwina. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. James, for facilitating the Q&A section, and thank you to our speakers for doing justice to the question. I want to believe, yeah, some of the questions that you have been answered, and then, it's always an ongoing conversation. So if there's anything, remember, you can deepen this conversation further even after the call. You can connect with the speakers. They are both on LinkedIn. You can connect with them. You can also be part of the M&E Sphere community, where you meet other like-minded individuals like you, and then you get access to information, resources, and then opportunities that we always share on the platform. So again, from me and to every member of the team, I want to say thank you so much. Thank you for making our time to be with us here. We do not take your presence for granted. Thank you to our speakers. Somebody who is at the top level in M&E, they're always busy, but they agree and they stick to the call from the beginning to this moment. We are so grateful. From me and to every member of the team, some of them have been on the call from the starting to the end. Dr. Rosie is here, Mr. James, Sembe, Ashezi, Ifeanyi, and to every member of the M&E Sphere, thank you for the continuous support and encouragement. They're the reason why we do this, and hopefully we converge again for another session sooner than later. Thank you, and if there's nothing else from anyone, I'll just call it a day and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah, bye everyone.